Hello and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, hi, I'm Cassidy. If it's not, thanks for always tuning into my videos. Today we're going over my November TBR wrap-up. November sucked. I failed. Actually, I passed. I did pass. If you watched my TBR video, I'm counting it as a pass. But, let's go over some stats first. In November, I finished 3 books only, but I still passed, you know? So my stats are really low. I read 1,890 pages, but I passed. Come on, okay? Because I don't count DNFs in my stats. Like, even if I read 70% of a book and I DNF'd it, I don't count it towards my stats. So I did read more pages than this month, but in my overall stats, I only like to put in my completed books. So that's why they're really low. But let's get into like the actual good part now. Here is my set TBR. Here is my little TBR. It's obviously missing Guild, the Plated Prisoner series, because I read that on my phone, and The Rune of All Kings, because my sister has it so that she could read it. So, I successfully finished these two and The Rune of All Kings. And then we also had a mood read thrown in there, which ended up being The Hobbit. So let's go through the whole TBR. Let's quickly, I guess, we'll go through all the ones I completed and read, and then I will go through all my DNFs, and I'm gonna kind of explain why I still completed my TBR, because some people were like, you shouldn't have done that, but I don't switch out prompts, so I will allow myself to DNF books and still count that as a completed book. Also because I typically don't DNF very early on. So, okay, because I don't have it, let's start with The Rune of All Kings. I gave this a very, 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 very high 4-star. It was almost a 5-star, but there was just something holding it back. Spoiler alert, the next book got 5 stars. And I adored this book. I picked it up on recommendation of J.D. Ray Reads, and she could not have picked a better book. If you enjoyed the writing of Sebastian de Castell, Traitor's Blade, you will like this book. It has that funny, like, it has that comedic, that dark comedic aspect written into it that Sebastian de Castell also writes with. So, with the brief summary of The Rune of Kings is you're following the story about a man named Kieran. So you're following 2 different timelines told by 2 different narrators. The one narrator is actually Kieran, and the one narrator is a demon named Talon, who is a demon mimic named Talon, who I love Talon. You're following Kieran as a younger boy, about 15 I think he is, and then about a year later it starts for the next timeline, and you're essentially waiting for to not necessarily meet up, but they meet, like, the younger Kieran meets up with where the older Kieran starts. They, like, mesh well together. And then on top of that, there is a 3rd narrator, who I very much enjoyed, and he's where lots of the comedy comes from. But also, Kieran, in general, is very comedic, and I really enjoyed that about this book. As I was saying, summary, I kind of got distracted just explaining to you, like, all the narrators. My hands are going everywhere today. You're following Kieran's, like, life story, almost, of becoming this hero. You are spoiled on the back that he might not actually be the hero. He could be, but he might not be. And so it's just an interesting story. Like, I don't even want to tell you much about the plot, because now that I've read the 2nd book, I feel like I'll give away too much of the plot. Yeah, you're literally just following Kieran's story, and the one plot line, he is thrown into, like, a new family. He's been told he's the, like, bastard son of one of the royals, so he's thrown into that, and that's just, like, torment and torture, and, like, his new father is like not the nicest person. And then the other timeline, you're following him as he has been sold as a slave and geished. And geishing is so cool. The magicalness of this book, like, I loved the world building. I loved the magic system, even though I think it's a bit of a soft magic system. And I hate those, because it leads to plot conveniences. But the way this is narrated, with, it's two people telling a story, but it's like they're telling the story, and then this narrator is reading the story to someone else to tell the story. So you know that some of them know things that, like, you know that they know things that already happened. So I feel like the plot conveniences work. Cool, okay. There's lots of gods in this. There is god kings, there's religion, there's different types of races, there's so much going on, and it was just incredible. The thing I didn't overly enjoy, which I noticed in both books, but I liked it better in the second book, spoiler for next month, was most of this story is told through dialogue. So yeah, and I know a main criticism of this book is because you get the footnotes, which are like the third narrator. Lots of people think that's lazy world building. To be honest, to me, I think that it was the coolest aspect of this book, and I can kind of see why someone would say it's lazy world building, but I think that it's harder to do it this way than sometimes it is to build your world. And I think that the author did an incredible job with this, and I would highly recommend this book. I loved it. It was so good. And I loved the characters. Talon specifically. Okay, let's just move on to the next book, because I don't have much else to say besides that you should read A Chorus of Dragons, which is the whole series, and my sister's currently reading it because it was great. Also, that the audiobook is absolutely amazing, and I read the book and followed along with the audiobook. The Runic Kings was my pick for multi-POV. The next book was Fool's Fate by Robin Hobb, which is book 3 of the Tawny Man trilogy. Can't really tell you what this is about because it's the finale to the third trilogy in the realm of the Elderlings, but the first trilogy, which is Assassin's Apprentice, follows Fitz Farseer, who is the bastard son of the King in Waiting, and when the King of Waiting gives up his title, Fitz ends up being the assassin, because it's like, he's not really royalty, he's not royalty, so the king decides to use him as an assassin, and you just follow Fitz's very tragic life, and nothing ever goes great for Fitz. Just heartbreak all along. So this trilogy, we are back with Fitz and the Fool. I obviously didn't love the first 2 books in the series. This one, by far, has been my favorite. This one got 4 stars from me. I cried. I cried way harder than I did in the first book. This book, it really, really hurt me. I still stand by the fact that I think this could have been a duology, and the first book in the series could have been a novella very easily. But, you know, apparently I have been told that I didn't read the Piebald Prince novella, and I really effed up there. So, you should read that. Although I didn't feel like I was missing anything about the story. I didn't feel like I was confused at any part not reading it, and I do know that the Piebald Prince the novella was published after the series was ever written. So it's not necessary to read it, but it probably just adds more depth into the story. This book had me back to what I want from Hobb, with all the characters being more center stage, more intriguing. I actually cared what was happening in this story, and maybe that's on me that I don't overly like Fitz and the Fool together, because I don't like Fitz, which is like a very unpopular opinion, and I hate being in Fitz's head. I would much rather this have been a multi-POV'd book. But the supporting cast in this series, I actually have really, really enjoyed. I love our little Prince Dutiful, and of course Nettle. Nothing needs to be said about Nettle. I wish Nettle had had a bigger part in this entire series, because I think that she is the best part of this book. I know most people hate the third book in Hobbs' books because it is a journey. There is a lot of walking to get to the place you need to be, but I always love the last book because I just like to see how every little piece has like connected. And so the third books tend to be my favorite because I've really seen this map out. Fool's Fate was my pick for series. And the last book that I completed was Amari and the Night Brothers. You know, even though I had a really sad reading month in terms of quantity, the books I read and finished, I loved. Those two were 4 stars, and this happened to be a 5-star. I was expecting this to be my least favorite book of the month. And who knew? Who knew I could love a middle grade this much? Spoiler alert, that this will be one of my favorite books of the year. A middle grade. Middle grade. I never knew that this would be a thing. I love this book. And it is the only book on this list, but it is a book that every single person in the entire world should read. I think what this book does, what it talks about, and how it does it, magical. Literally magical. Amari and the Night Brothers follows Amari, whose brother has gone missing. And everyone says he's dead, but she doesn't believe so. And one day she gets a email and a secret package that was from him saying, in case of emergency, send this case to Amari. And it happens to be a invite to the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs, a secret organization that she's sure holds the key to locating her brother Quentin. She has to compete for a spot against kids who've known about magic their whole lives, and no matter how hard she tries, Amari can't seem to escape their intense scrutiny and doubt, especially once her own supernaturally enhanced talent is deemed illegal. With an evil magician threatening the supernatural world and her classmates thinking she's an enemy, Amari has never felt more alone. But if she doesn't stick it out and pass the tryouts, she may never find out what happened to Quentin. So what I think this book does so well and why I loved it is, of course, it is talking about racism, and it talks about it very out front. It talks about what it's like being Amari and what it's like for kids that grew up not having a lot and their skin color is different than the general society that is in control. What life's like for them and how terrible it is. And I like that it explicitly kind of talks about that, but then at the same time we're talking about racism through the concept of her being an illegal supernatural versus these people that are not illegal for literally no reason, because they're kind of doing the same thing. So we talk about racism through the magic system too, and we talk about prejudice, and we talk about things that are so prevalent in our society today, and that it is so amazing for a little kid to read at such an early age. And that's why I think this book is so important for not only little kids to read, but also adults, because what it says, what it talks about, is such an amazing story and voice that needs to be heard. And that's it. Like, literally, I love. You could go next to Poppy Warp. Very different books, but I love them both almost equally. Amari and the Night Brothers was the pick for new. That's all the books I actually completed. We're just going to briefly talk about some DNFs, or reasons why I didn't finish. We'll go with The Hobbit first, which was my mood read for the month. So, The Hobbit, everybody knows what The Hobbit is about, so I feel like I'm really not going to explain it, because if you didn't, just go watch the movies. This is, I guess, a buddy read with my sister and her roommate. So we're reading a chapter every 2 days, so I obviously knew I wasn't going to complete it in the month of November, but I was going to make a pretty good indent in it. We were actually supposed to have it finished, I think, yesterday, but none of us are finished, so we extended it a little bit. So this one, I'm counting towards done, because although I knew I wouldn't be done it, I am finishing it. I am on chapter 16, I think. The Storm of Echoes, which was my pick for hype, and I did not finish this. This was supposed to be a buddy read with my friend Cassandra over on Instagram. She completed it. She loved it. I want to finish it. It's not a DNF, but I'm counting it as completed because there are valid reasons, I think, why I don't want to finish it. This is This is the fourth book in the Mirror Visitor Quartet. The first one is A Winter's Promise, and I love A Winter's Promise. I have heard mixed reviews because Jade over at JD Ray Reads didn't like it, and that has made me scared. But mostly, this is the first book in this series that I have picked up physically. The other ones I all read through audiobook. So, when I was reading it physically, I wasn't loving it. And I was noticing things that people complain about, so the writing style specifically, I didn't love when reading it physically. So I decided I'm not continuing this until I get the hands on the audiobook, and then I will continue it via audiobook, and hopefully that makes my reading experience better, and I love it. And then we have Hall of Smoke by H.M. Long, which was my pick for 5-star prediction. I DNF'd it. I DNF'd a 5-star prediction. I think I only made it about 20% into this one before I DNF'd it. I was just so freaking bored. I can't even explain to you. Like, I just was bored, and I had literally no interest in what was going on. So why continue it? Why put myself through that when I know I'm not going to enjoy it if I'm bored for 20% of the book? Do I want to continue? But there we go. Then the last one that was on my TBR was Guild. So, book 1 in the Plated Prisoner series. I got 56% into this book before I decided to DNF it. Here's the thing. This is a smut book. It's a fantasy romance book. I picked it because it was fantasy romance, and I thought I wanted fantasy romance. I didn't. The book starts with sex. Just, like, right away. So, I have liked very specific fantasy romance books. ACOTAR, From Blood and Ash, and the Bridge Kingdom, which are very heavily plot-based fantasy romance, is what I've learned. People say that ACOTAR is not, but I think it has a decent plot that's overarching all of them. And the smut's kind of just there. It's not like the main premise, although From Blood and Ash, as the series continues, and like A Court of Silver Flames, literally just smut. But the first books definitely have plot in them, so once I'm invested in the characters and that relationship, I want all the smut. I want all the tense sex scenes and sexual tension. But at the beginning, I need more of a plot. And so I was just bored. Like, I just didn't find the little plot that was in this book very interesting. I found it very predictable, and at 53%, I couldn't read anymore. So I will not be continuing this book. And yeah, so it's another DNF, so I am obviously counting DNFs towards completed. I think that's it. I think that's all the books that I read or attempted to read in November. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you made it this far and you'd like to leave me a comment to say that you were here but you have nothing to say, leave me a star emoji, or like twinkling stars, you know? And have a wonderful day. I would love to talk to you in the comments about any of these books, if you're excited for any of them, if you've read any of them, if you're surprised I DNF'd any of them, and have a good day. I don't really have much else to say. I probably should film another video after this, but I think I just want to go read. So, give this video a big old thumbs up if you liked it. Please subscribe to my channel. It means the world to me. And just have a wonderful day. I'm going to put some videos on the screen that I think you would enjoy if you checked out. Thank you guys so much.